All right, what is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today, we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets. Playoff time is coming upon us, and the Houston Rockets have been absolutely amazing throughout the past month of the season. They're on a hot streak right now, and I really want to talk about what their chances are in the playoffs. I feel like we kind of, push them to the side a little bit because they're young, but I really want to know what I think this team could do in the playoffs. We're going to talk about that here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn notifications to also like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, getting closer and closer as the days go on. So all support around the channel would be very much appreciated. Link to my Twitter and all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. The Houston Rockets have been on absolute fire over this past month of the season. They've won 15 of their last 17 games, including they had a 9-game win streak in March, and then they've won 3, and now currently on a 3-game winning streak. They beat Utah, they beat OKC, and they beat Golden State last night. A couple of really good wins they've had over this stretch of games, and it really makes me think because I did an NBA contender tier list. I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. I ranked every team contender in terms of how we think we can win the championship. And with the Rockets, I put them in kind of like the perfect world tier, which is basically for me, it was like I wouldn't bet on them to win a championship. I don't know how far they're gonna make it, but in a perfect world, if they get the perfect matchups, maybe they can do something and go a little far, you know. And I feel like for the entire year, when it comes to regular season, they've been amazing. I mean, you can't take anything away from the Rockets, but in the playoffs, I feel like now maybe not only just me, but a lot of other people kind of I don't push them to the side, I guess maybe is not the right wording. That's the only thing I could think of. Or underestimated them because they're young. They don't really have any experience. The only people that have playoff experience on this team is Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams. Jeff Green also does, but he doesn't really play. Those are only 3 players that actually have playoff experience, have gone in the playoffs multiple times, have gone far. Fred VanVleet has an NBA championship, you know. So their main core guys, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, those guys have never even sniffed a playoff appearance before. And so experience obviously is a big thing when it comes to playoffs, and also the way that their team plays. They're not a team that really has a 1A, a superstar, maybe not even like a top 20, 25 player in the league. And any playoff series they go into, they most likely will not have the best player in that series, and their half court offense, and especially in the clutch and all that stuff, is not the best. They don't really have a go to guy where it's like, all right, last couple minutes of the game, give this guy the ball and let him work, and he's going to send us home, which is for the playoffs. You see, when it comes down to those last few possessions, you see the star players take over and do their thing. Houston doesn't really have that right now. And again, their half court offense is not really the best. And when it comes to playoff time, half court offense is really you're not going to get as many fast break and open opportunities, in the regular season. So half court offense is a huge thing in the playoffs. They don't have that as great as a lot of the other teams do. So we kind of look at them in the playoffs and we're like, they could win maybe a series, but I don't really see them going far, all that stuff. But seeing this stretch of games, it's kind of like maybe we shouldn't underestimate them as much as we do. Or maybe I do. Maybe I'm underestimating them a lot more than what usually people are. You look at this team over this 17-game stretch, they've had a top 5 offense and a top 2 defense. Number 4 offensive rating, number 2 defensive rating, and our second in net rating. They have been absolutely dominant over this stretch. They're 6th in points per game, 2nd in field goals made, 2nd in field goal attempts over this stretch. The rebounding is a big thing for them. They're 3rd in offensive rebounds, 2nd in defensive rebounds, and 1st in rebounds per game. All these stats I'm about to say, by the way, are only in the last 17 games, not the entire season. So they're a rebounding machine, and that proves because they're 1st and 2nd chance points. They're a team that they get a lot of second chance opportunities, a lot of offensive rebounds, and that also helps their offense a lot because if you're getting extra chances to score, eventually shots are going to go in. They're 7th in points in the paint. Defensively, though, we know what they do. They are elite. They're 6th in opponent points off turnovers, 3rd in opponent fast break points. They're 7th in opponent field goals made, 7th in opponent field goal percentage, 5th in opponent 3-pointers made, 6th in opponent 3-point attempts, third in opponent free throws made, third in opponent free throw attempts, first in opponent defensive rebounds, first in opponent rebounds per game, fourth in opponent assists, fourth in opponent points. Meaning they're top 10 in majority of defensive categories. We know what they do. They are absolutely elite defensively. And the last couple games, they've shown that against OKC. They did a really good job on Shea, and the Thunder, and really limited them. And then their last night, their game against the Warriors, really opened a lot of people's eyes. We know how great of defense they are, but that game against the Warriors last night was amazing. They held Steph Curry to 3 points and one shot made, which is a random end of the second quarter, throw up a three and it went in because it's Steph Curry, obviously. But the way they played defense, they were so great. It felt like Ime Udoka. The game plan was literally, hey, literally anybody but Steph. I don't care who shoots. I don't care who scores. Steph Curry is not beating us in this game. Send two at him every time. Every pick and roll. Every time you pick and roll, they send two, and they gave a lot of easy layups to guys like Gary Payton and them. But it didn't matter. They're like, I don't care. Give up those layups. Give up those shots. Let Brandon Pajemski, let all of them shoot. I don't care. As long as number 30 is not shooting and scoring and beating us, I'll live. And they lived. They didn't really have much else going, and they won the game. So, like, that defense was incredible. Their defense, the entirety of this, over the stretch, the most points they have allowed in a game was 137 against Philadelphia in an overtime game. That was it. But besides that, over the stretch, they've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games holding teams to under 100 points. Especially, again, last night against the Warriors, they held them to 96. So, like, they have been doing their job on the defensive end. And offensively, things are really coming together. We talk about them not having really a star player and a superstar player, but there's also value in just having a good team effort. And that's what they do every single night. I mean, Jalen Green, I feel like, has really taken big steps this season. The first couple years of his career, it's always been kind of like what Jalen Green are we getting? Are we getting the Jalen Green that's probably up 35? Or are we getting the Jalen Green that has 7 points on 3 for 14 shooting? Like, what Jalen Green are we getting? Just the inconsistency. This year has been his most consistent year. He's averaging over 21.5 points per game. He's had big moments. He's shown up in big games. He has kind of taken over as their go-to scorer. Then you have Alperen Sengun, who's an all-star this year, 19, 10, and 5. We know what he can do. And then Dylan Brooks, I feel like, has just been on fire every time I watch him over the past month, shooting 39% from 3. Fred VanVleet is finally back, and that's a big part because they did have a stretch in the middle near the All-Star break where they were on a little bit of a losing streak. That was because Fred VanVleet wasn't there. Fred VanVleet is the table setter. He calms everything down, makes everything work, and he also hits some big shots. And then you have Amen Thompson, who is just absolutely incredible. I mean, if you watch basketball, you know how insane Amen Thompson is on both ends. He's a defensive monster, and then offensively, he just connects everything so well together. He is absolutely incredible. He's become like a full-time starter. He's taking Jabari Smith Jr.'s spot, and Jabari Smith Jr. has done his thing as well. He's fit into his role coming off the bench. Hit threes, rebounding very well. He's really good on the defensive end. Tari Eason is another guy that's just a defensive monster. And I love what he can do on the offensive end. And they just have even Steven Adams. Steven Adams has really come in to himself, and Steven Adams has been huge as well. I mean, he's averaging more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds this year. That is nuts. He's averaging more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds. He's a rebounding machine. And in that Thunder game, when they went with that two big lineup of Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun, and even threw Jabari Smith Jr. in there, at one point, it just was unstoppable. Because anytime a shot goes up, you have Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun in the paint. And both of those guys average 3 or more offensive rebounds per game. So it was like one of them's getting an offensive rebound, and they're getting an extra shot attempt. Like, it's just, like, Steven Adams has just been a huge piece to this team as well. And Ime Udoka, I mean, you got to give credit. I mean, I know he's one of the greatest coaches in the league, and he's really done a good job. And I think it's maybe being overshadowed a little bit by the Detroit Pistons and how insane they've been and well-deserved. Like, going from the bottom of the NBA to a 42-win team in just 1 year is absolutely nuts. And shout out to the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, they deserve all the love and all the credit that they are getting. But that is kind of overshadowing how insane the Houston Rockets have been. The Houston Rockets, if you don't remember, 2 years ago, the Houston Rockets were the dumpster fire of the NBA. Ever since, once James Harden left, the Houston Rockets were bad. I'm not even just not good. They were horrible. They were bad. I said it multiple times on the channel when I did look into stuff. They feel like an AAU team. They're just kind of running out there and just whatever happens, happens, Like there was no culture. There was nothing you could really hang your hat on. They were just going out there, just a bunch of 19-year-olds going out there and just whatever happens, happens. There wasn't really a direction or anything, you know. And now Ime Udoka's come in. Last year they were 41 and 41. They almost made the play-in. They had a really hot second half of the year and almost got a play-in spot. And they go from that, where I was considering this year, are they gonna make the play-in? Maybe. Who knows how far they make it? Now they're a 52 win. They might win like 54, 55 games. They're a 50+ win team, and about to be second in the Western Conference, above teams like the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Timberwolves. Like above all those teams. Like that is crazy. In 2 years, how they've gone from dumpster fire to a legit 50+ win team. Like absolutely nuts. You got to give Ime Udoka so much credit for what he's done. And I mean, the one year he's head coach in Boston, they made the NBA Finals. And granted, they had a really good team, but they hadn't made the finals before that since the Paul Pierce, Garnett, Ray Allen era, Rondo era. So like, we know how good of a coach he is. And having that in the playoffs is going to be huge as well, because coaching obviously matters a ton. And there's probably going to be a couple games in a series where Ime Udoka will win it just because of his coaching mind and, putting up a good lineup and scheme together. So going into this playoffs, we kind of, I guess, underestimate the Rockets because they don't have the experience. They don't have the superstar talent. They're maybe not the greatest clutch team, but looking at all the things they do well, they have an amazing coach. They have an amazing defense that forces turnovers. You could play multiple different lineups together, and they do their job. And if you can do your job on the defensive end and get out and transition and gets a couple points off turnovers and all that stuff, that'll be really, really good. And they still have capable offensive players and veterans out there like Fred VanVleet who can set the table. Jalen Green might be a little bit of like who knows what's gonna happen. Some nights he can give you 30, some nights he's gonna have 7. Who knows? Still having that, he can get hot. We know he can have a 4 or 5 game stretch where he goes off, and that 4 or 5 game stretch can determine a series when he gets to the playoffs. If he can have a really good 5 game stretch in a playoff series, that's huge. You have Alperen Sengun who can run an offense, being a big man that does so many things. You have shooters like Dylan Brooks out there, Fred VanVleet again, Jabari Smith Jr. You have Amen Thompson who can break any game. You have the big man depth of Sengun and Steven Adams. They showed against the Thunder they can run that lineup together if they're playing against a team that's big. They can run small with Jabari Smith Jr. in there with Tari Eason and Amen. Like they have so many different lineup combinations, a really good roster, and this is a actual capable team. So looking at it now, it's kind of like, dang, like the Rockets probably could win. At least the Rockets probably can win a first round series, definitely. And I feel like we should take this team a lot more seriously than we actually kind of do, and not just put them off to the side just because they're a young team with no experience. Obviously, experience matters and being in this situation matters. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship and they're the favorite to come out of the Western Conference. Obviously, I'm not saying any of that. But I just think, like, man, like, this is an actually really good basketball team, and I'm not going to underestimate them in the playoffs. Just because they're playing against a team that might be more experienced than them, like, I'm not going to underestimate this team. Now, still, obviously, we don't know what the playoff situation is going to look like yet. There's still so much to decide, and we only have a week left, which, by the way, I did a video yesterday talking about what's left for the last week of the season. Go check that out. But, like, I might pick the Rockets in almost, I don't know if I want to say that. It's going to be, I mean, obviously, we got to wait and see who they're going to play and where they end up and what other teams end up and all that stuff and how teams are playing. But the Houston Rockets are a very good basketball team, and we should not, we should take them seriously. We should not underestimate this team in any way. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it a whole lot. Once again, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. All the support around the channel be very much appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.